rocket salad, game consoles, rollerblades, pastel colors. Could it be that it's the little things which tell the most interesting stories about a particular decade?
Like the Monobox, the ultimate car shape of the 90s.
Just like the SUV craze of today would like to make us believe that a car's worth is measured through its height and might, the Monobox made the point that the shorter the bonnet, the better, or at least smarter, the car.
The case for the Monobox seemed so very convincing that this type of body style was pursued in all kinds of ways. Like the Renault Twingo, the ultimate monobox. It not only reinvented the small car, but lent its maker new meaning and pizzazz. And then there was the Mercedes A-Class. It did not reinvent the small car. Instead, it caused its maker quite a few headaches. And yet, both the Twingo, as it rejuvenated and redefined the Renault, and the A-Class, a car that was undoubtedly misguided, but also brilliant in parts, deserve our attention as prime examples of the monobox phenomenon.
The monobox had not been invented in the 90s, but about 2 decades earlier. The first popular European monobox road car, of course, was the original Renault Espace, launched in 1984. This started a period of experimenting with the packaging of automobiles and the emergence of another design trend: cab forward. Placing the cabin as far at the front as possible suddenly didn't ruin a car's proportions, it made them look cutting edge. The monobox took things even further, establishing itself as the most space-efficient, logical and advanced body style of them all.
So both Mercedes and Renault were to concern themselves with the monobox too. But not just the resultant cars, but how and why these were created couldn't have been any more different.
During the 80s, Mercedes-Benz, being the inventors of the automobile and whatnot, concerned themselves with the monobox. Mercedes being Mercedes, this involved no less than some fundamental research. In parallel to developing, building and selling a range of exquisitely conservative saloons, Mercedes started experimenting with the revolutionary concept of a small monobox city car. By the dawn of the 90s, this research resulted in the sandwich floor plan. Having the engine installed in such a way that it wouldn't be pushed into the cabin in a collision freed up space while maintaining the highest levels of passive safety. Evidently, Mercedes had found a way of creating a compact car worthy of wearing a 3-pointed star. Lending that revolutionary compact car shape true to its maker's exacting standards was the responsibility of a design department led by none other than Bruno Sacco, Mercedes' legendary chief designer, who had overseen the marque's entire range of 80s designs. By contrast, Sacco's counterpart at Renault had only recently joined the French car maker.
Patrick Lequaimont, the Anglo-French designer, had been hired to bring back some fizz into Renault's stale design efforts. A dormant small car project provided him with the perfect opportunity to do just that.
For Renault had spent much of the 80s creating and producing appliance-like cars that were bought because they were cheap and readily available. Desirable they were not, with the exception of the Espace. As Lequaimont started his long-term project to try and reinvigorate Renault design, he happened across a previously abandoned project, a cheap base model called VBG, Vrai Bas de Gamme, a true entry-level automobile. It only existed in the form of various prototypes, none of which were entirely convincing. Yet Lequaimont saw promise in revisiting this project. Over in Stuttgart, the definition of entry-level naturally was rather different. As with the highly accomplished W201 Baby Benz launched a decade earlier, the next smallest Mercedes of all time had to be nothing short of revolutionary, if it was to do its proud maker justice. It was hence determined that Mercedes' small monobox accordingly had to offer all the space, safety and comfort of a much larger car on a small footprint. Moreover, a revolutionary fully electric version was being developed. In 1993, Mercedes hence presented the eager outside world with a taster of its upcoming redefinition of the small car in the form of Studie A or Vision A. Quite obviously, lending a 3.35 meter short, upright minivan Mercedes-like gravitas was a tall order indeed. But Vision A at least attempted to maintain some of the serious, rational design flair that was still considered a Mercedes mainstay, what with its very modernist take on the marque's traditional grille and largely clean, logical graphics. Evidently, a lot had changed design-wise over the 4 years between Vision A's unveiling and the launch of the production A-Class, codenamed W168. While Bruno Sacco was still in charge of Mercedes' design operations, the overall product and design approach had changed dramatically. Vertical affinity and horizontal homogeneity had been abandoned in favor of Designfreiheit, design freedom. Instead of intentionally trailing behind fashion and pursuing a strategy of implemented timelessness, as had been done before, Mercedes now sought to free itself of its many self-imposed dogmas. And boy, did that show in the A-Class. Whereas the Twingo's cheerful styling details almost distract from the highly practical, rational design at its core, the A-Class's designers had applied elaborate decorative touches all over the Swabian monobox. This made for a very unorthodox, very form distracts from function approach, as, to name but two examples, neither the shape of its side window openings nor the wavy dashboard were symbols of Swabian perfectionist pragmatism.
These were obvious attempts at lending the small Benz an air of something the marque had never been immediately associated with: fun. The A-Class was supposed to be fashionable, casual, and even a little cheeky. In other words, Stuttgart was trying to come across a bit like Berlin.
Small elements like the exterior door handles, carryover switchgear, or ribbed pattern of the rear lights did pay lip service to Mercedes' styling cues of yore. But otherwise, the A-Class came across almost like a repudiation of Mercedes design's reputation for earnest logic and uncompromising craftsmanship, to say nothing of the interior's levels of perceived quality. On the outside, instead of diligently crafted surfaces waiting to be discovered and appreciated, the A-Class boasted all kinds of gimmicky curved shapes screaming for attention. Even if the mini-Benz wasn't painted one of those very of-its-time pastel hues. But breaking with the marque's past clearly was no accident. It had been done by design.
This becomes particularly obvious inside the cabin, where some very loud colors and plenty of ovoid shapes make it abundantly clear that this ain't your grandfather's Benz.
By contrast, the Twingo was and remains a highly authentic, honest piece of design. Yes, it's got those saucer eyes, a contribution from the chief designer himself, incidentally, turquoise accent and squishy typography. But those details are further expressions of the Twingo's essential design and character, rather than distractions from it. From the limited choice of colors, over the single wiper to the antenna fixed on the driver's side wing mirror and the one-piece plastic dashboard, each and every aspect of the Twingo was cost and charm optimized in equal measure. Here was a very cheap car that offered all the things that were covetable, yet inexpensive: space, versatility, practicality, and, indeed, style. Nothing about the little Renault was pretentious or false aspirational. This applied to both exterior and interior.
Of course, the Twingo's cabin is by no means more luxurious than the A-Class is. But it's not attempting to be that either. Instead, it surprises and delights with little touches that cost no money to implement.
In spite of the German car having been far more expensive to develop, produce and buy, it was the Twingo that was not just the more coherent, but also the more substantial piece of design, down to its silhouette and stance. Whereas the supposedly assured Mercedes looked tall, narrow and awkwardly pointed, the supposedly less substantial Twingo's stance was planted, its overall appearance cheeky, yet confident. Design-wise, the Renault's honest, charming simplicity easily trumped the Mercedes' uneasy combination of complex sophistication, ostensible faddishness and cheapskate aspects.
The A-Class's tragedy is that its intelligence was overshadowed by its compromises. Yes, it was immensely space efficient, and as long as it didn't tilt over, very safe indeed. Its engineering, generally speaking, was very, very impressive, but its styling, overbearingly shallow.
The term honest design is usually applied to German rationalist designs inspired by the Bauhaus movement. While the Twingo might not appear rational and is profoundly non-German in its character, it is highly rationalist in its very own way. and as honest a piece of car design as they come. Unlike the A-Class, which employed all kinds of smoke and mirrors, not to mention almost any styling trick fashionable at the time to try and distract from the fact that this revolutionary Benz essentially was a very small minivan for people who value space efficiency over sporting appeal, to which there is no shame whatsoever, unlike pretending otherwise.
And that's the essential difference between the Mercedes and the Renault Monobox designs. One of them is perfectly consistent. It's accessible, it's cheerful, it's practical. The other is trying to be rather too many things to too many people.
The crucial component in a truly great small car design might actually be of the non-tangible variety. Maybe it is humility?